What you do with your life is secondary. Some will build empires. Others will tend a quiet garden. But here's what the Buddha discovered. How you do what you do, that's primary. And most of us have never really understood this. There's a way of moving through life where stillness and action aren't separate, where you can work, create, engage fully, and yet remain at peace. Not peace that requires withdrawing from the world. Peace that comes with you into the world. This changes everything. When you try to create, to manifest, to build a life from a place of inner restlessness, you only create more restlessness. The doing becomes compulsive. The achieving never satisfies. But when consciousness flows into what you do, something shifts. The most impactful people often do less, yet accomplish more. Their work carries a quality you can feel but can't quite name. This is what we're exploring for the next while. Not as theory, as lived experience. You can rest while you listen. Lie down if you'd like. Let these words wash over you like water. There's nowhere to arrive, nothing to achieve here. Just this gentle invitation to discover what the ancient masters knew, that the quality you bring to this moment matters more than what you accomplish in a lifetime. Let's begin. There was a man who had everything on his list. The corner office on the 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The luxury apartment in the right neighborhood. The recognition. Awards on the wall. His name in articles. Invitations to speak. He'd worked 20 years for this. Sacrificed relationships, health, countless evenings and weekends. But he'd made it. And at 3 a.m, he'd wake up, staring at the ceiling, feeling hollow. Not depressed exactly, not in crisis, just empty. And the question would come, quiet but insistent. What's next? Is this all there is? He'd get up, make coffee, check his phone, look at his calendar for the next achievement, the next milestone. Surely that one would feel different. But somewhere deep down, he already knew. This is what the Buddha called tanha, craving. Not just wanting things, but the desperate quality underneath. The sense that something is missing, that you're incomplete, and if you could just get that thing, achieve that goal, reach that destination, then finally, you'd be okay. Then finally, you could rest. But here's what happens. You get the thing. And for a moment, maybe a day, maybe a week, there's satisfaction. Relief. You did it. And then, so subtle you barely notice, the wanting returns. Now it's the next thing, the next level. Because the craving doesn't come from lacking the object, it comes from believing that you're incomplete. One achievement creates the next craving. You get promoted. Now you need the next promotion. You buy the car. Now you notice everyone else's car. You reach the goal. Now there's a bigger goal beyond it. The hunger feeds itself. The Buddha said something very simple about this. The root of suffering is attachment to desire. Not desire itself, but the attachment. The belief that your peace depends on getting what you want. The conviction that fulfillment is just one more achievement away. And listen, this isn't about making craving wrong. It's not about judging yourself for wanting things, for having ambitions, for trying to build a good life. We all do this. We've all been conditioned to believe that happiness comes from accumulating, achieving, becoming. The society we live in runs on this belief. Advertising exists to create craving where none existed. You're shown images designed to make you feel incomplete, then offered products to fill the gap. And it works, because underneath there is a sense of incompleteness. Something does feel missing. But what if the incompleteness isn't solved by adding more? What if it's solved by understanding why you feel incomplete in the first place? Our executive, one day, he was sitting in his office, looking out at the city, and he just stopped. Stopped pretending he was fine. Stopped reaching for the next thing to fill the void. And he felt it fully, the restlessness, the craving, the exhausting loop of it. Not trying to fix it, just seeing it clearly for the first time. That's when something shifted. Not dramatically. No lightning bolt of enlightenment. Just a quiet recognition. Oh, this is what I've been doing. Chasing the next thing to escape this feeling right now. Perhaps you've felt this restlessness too. Maybe not in a corner office. Maybe in a different circumstance entirely. But the pattern, wanting, getting, brief satisfaction, then wanting again. The sense that you're always reaching for something just beyond where you are. Always thinking, when I get there, then I'll be happy. When I achieve that, then I'll be enough. When I finally have that, then I can relax. But there never quite arrives, does it? There's always another there beyond it. The Buddha noticed something about human hearts. He saw that we're caught in this cycle, not because we're doing something wrong, but because we don't understand what we're actually hungry for. We think we're hungry for the corner office, the relationship, the recognition, the security. And yes, these things matter in the conventional world. They're not bad or wrong. But underneath the surface, hunger is a deeper one. A longing for something that can't be achieved or accumulated. A longing to finally be at peace with this moment, exactly as it is. To not need the next thing to be okay. To not need to become someone different to be complete. This deeper hunger, it can't be fed by anything external, which is why the cycle never ends if you keep trying. But when you see the cycle clearly, when you really see it, not intellectually, but in your actual lived experience, something becomes possible. Freedom. Not from wanting things, but from being enslaved by the wanting. Our executive is still working, still has ambitions, still creates and builds. But there's a different quality now. He can engage without grasping, can achieve without needing the achievement to validate him. The doing continues, but the desperate quality underneath has quieted. This is what becomes possible when you understand craving, not as something to eliminate, but as something to see clearly. Remember when you got that new car? The first few weeks were magic. The smell of it, the way it drove, how you felt sitting behind the wheel. You'd find excuses to drive places just to be in it. Friends would say, "Nice car," and you'd feel that little spark of pride. It meant something. All the work you'd done, the saving, the waiting, now here it was, this beautiful machine that was yours. 3 weeks later, it was just the car. You'd get in without thinking about it. Drive to work on autopilot. The newness had evaporated. What once thrilled you had become invisible, ordinary, just another part of the day. And then it needed repair. Now suddenly, you noticed it again, but as an annoyance, an expense, something that should work but doesn't. Where did the joy go? Where did the satisfaction disappear to? This is anicca, impermanence, but not as some abstract Buddhist philosophy, as the actual texture of your lived experience. Everything changes. Everything passes. Nothing stays the same, not even for a moment. The car changes from thrilling to ordinary to annoying. Your body changes from young to aging. Your relationships shift and evolve. Your thoughts arise and dissolve, moment after moment after moment. Even your sense of self changes. Who you thought you were at 20 isn't who you are at 40. The certainties you held crumble. What mattered deeply becomes irrelevant. What you couldn't imagine wanting becomes everything. Nothing holds still. Look around at the natural world, and you see this everywhere. Seasons cycling endlessly. Spring's blossoms become summer's fruit, become autumn's decay, become winter's stillness. Then spring again, but different trees, different flowers, nothing exactly repeating. Life forms emerging and disappearing. Civilizations rising and falling. Mountains wearing down over millennia, while new ones thrust up from the earth. The ocean consumes the shore while simultaneously birthing new land. Forests burn, and from the ash, new growth. Everything in constant flux, constant transformation. This isn't a problem to solve. This is the nature of conditioned reality. Conditioned means arising from causes and conditions. Your car exists because of countless causes, materials mined from earth, workers assembling parts, your decision to buy it, economic systems that made it affordable. Each of those causes arose from other causes. Nothing stands alone. Nothing exists independently. The Buddha called this dependent origination. One thing leads to another, which leads to another. Nothing has an inherent, unchanging essence. Everything is a temporary meeting of conditions. When conditions change, and they always do, the thing changes, or ceases to exist entirely. Your body is like this. Cells dying and regenerating constantly. The body you had 7 years ago has been almost completely replaced at the cellular level. You're not the same physical form you were, yet somehow you call it my body, as if it's a permanent possession. Your thoughts are like this, arising from causes, something you saw, something you heard, a memory triggered, a fear activated, then dissolving, making space for the next thought which also arises from causes. An endless stream, nothing solid, nothing lasting. Even your relationships exist in flux. The person you love today isn't the same person you loved yesterday. They've changed. You've changed. The dynamic between you shifts moment to moment. Trying to freeze it in place, trying to make it permanent, creates suffering. And yet, we spend our entire lives trying to make things permanent. We try to hold on to pleasure, push away pain. We accumulate possessions as if we could take them with us. We build identities and defend them fiercely. We cling to youth, to health, to how things used to be. It's exhausting, because you're fighting against the fundamental nature of reality itself. You're trying to make the impermanent permanent. You're trying to stand still in a river that never stops flowing. And this is where the suffering comes from. Not from impermanence itself, but from not understanding impermanence, from expecting things to stay the same, from believing that if you could just hold on tight enough, you could stop the change. You can't. Nobody can. But here's the beautiful thing. You're not failing. You're not doing something wrong. You're not broken or insufficient. You're simply bumping up against the nature of reality. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the faster it flows away. The water isn't mocking you. Your hands aren't inadequate. Water simply cannot be held this way. Impermanent things cannot be held permanently. Conditioned things cannot be made unconditioned. The Buddha said, "All conditioned things are impermanent." When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering, not turns away from life, turns away from the suffering that comes from misunderstanding life. When you really see impermanence, not just think about it, but see it directly in your experience, something relaxes. You stop trying to make permanent what cannot be permanent. You stop demanding that this moment last forever. You stop clinging to what's already leaving. And paradoxically, this is when you can actually enjoy things. When you're not desperately trying to hold on to them. When you can let them be what they are, temporary, precious, here now, and soon gone. The new car can be enjoyed for exactly what it is. A temporary arrangement of metal and glass that serves a purpose for a while. When it breaks, it breaks. When it gets old, it gets old. No problem. Just the nature of things. The relationship can be met fully, right now, in this changing moment, without needing it to be frozen in place, without needing guarantees about forever. Just this person, this moment, this connection that exists now. Even your own life becomes less heavy when you stop pretending it's permanent. When you acknowledge, this body will age and fail. This mind will change. This personality I think of as me is already different than it was yesterday. What a relief, actually, to not have to make everything last forever. To just let things be what they are, impermanent, flowing, alive precisely because they're changing. There was a grandmother who forgot her story. Dementia took her memories slowly, piece by piece. First, the recent things, where she put her keys, what she ate for breakfast. Then larger chunks, her career, her achievements, the details of her children's lives. Eventually, she couldn't remember her name. Her family found this heartbreaking. They'd visit and try to remind her, "You're Margaret. You were a teacher for 30 years. You raised 4 children. You won awards, traveled the world, built this beautiful life." She'd smile politely, as if they were talking about someone else. Because to her, they were. But here's what her family noticed after a while. She seemed, and they almost felt guilty thinking this, she seemed at peace. More at peace than she'd been in years. Maybe ever. No anxiety about what people thought of her. No worry about her legacy or whether she'd accomplished enough. No comparing herself to others. No regret about roads not taken. She'd sit by the window watching light move across the wall and just be there. Fully there, not somewhere else in her mind. When someone visited, she'd greet them with genuine warmth, as if meeting them for the first time. Which, for her, she was. No old grievances, no stored resentments. Just this moment, this person, this connection. Her family thought it was tragic. She thought, to the extent she thought about it at all, she was free. Now, no one is romanticizing dementia. It's a real condition that causes real suffering for everyone involved. But there's something to learn from this story. Who are you when you can't remember who you've been? Take a moment with that question. Really feel into it. If right now you couldn't remember your past, your achievements, your failures, your identity, your whole story, what would be left? Would anything remain? Or would you disappear entirely? Most of us believe we would disappear because we think we are our story. We think, I am my history. I am my memories. I am this name, this face, this accumulated past. The Buddha looked at this very carefully and saw something radical. He saw that what we call self is a construction, a useful fiction for navigating the conventional world, but not ultimately real. He described it this way: in what is seen, there is only the seen. In what is heard, only the heard. In what is sensed, only the sensed. No separate seer possessing the seeing. No hearer owning the hearing. Just seeing happening. Just hearing happening. This is called anatta, non-self. And it's one of the most misunderstood teachings in Buddhism. People hear no self and think it means you don't exist. That's not what it means. Obviously, there's experience happening. Obviously, there's a body, thoughts, sensations, all of that. What doesn't exist is a separate, permanent, independent entity having these experiences. Look closely at what you call I. Where is it exactly? Is it in your body? but your body changes constantly. Which cell is the real you? Is it in your mind? But thoughts come and go. Which thought is the I? Maybe it's your personality, your character traits, but these change too. You're not the same person you were as a child, or even last year. Circumstances change you. Experiences reshape you. So where is this permanent, unchanging I that supposedly possesses your life? The truth is, there isn't one. What you call I is a convention, a name we give to a temporary collection of processes, this body, these thoughts, these memories, these patterns. It's useful to have a name, to say, I need food, or I'll meet you Tuesday. But when you believe this convention is ultimately real, when you believe there's a separate you that has a life, that's when suffering begins. Because then you spend all your energy defending this fictional entity, building it up, protecting it, trying to make it more important, more secure, more permanent. My achievements, my reputation, my possessions, my views, my opinions, my identity, all of it needing constant maintenance, constant protection. It's exhausting. And here's the deepest irony. You think you're defending yourself, but you're actually defending a mirage. A monk once asked the Buddha, if there's no self, who experiences nibbana? Who gets enlightened? The Buddha smiled. The question itself assumes what isn't there. There's no separate who to experience anything. There's just experience arising and passing. When the illusion of a separate experiencer dissolves, what remains is freedom. Not freedom for someone, just freedom. Now, this isn't nihilism. It's not saying nothing matters, or you should stop caring about life. That's a misunderstanding. Life continues. Actions have consequences. Kindness matters. Cruelty matters. You still function, still engage, still have relationships and responsibilities. But you're not carrying around this heavy burden of being somebody anymore. You're not constantly asking, am I enough? Do they like me? Am I impressive? Am I safe? All these questions assume there's a separate me that needs validating, protecting, improving. When you see through that assumption, when you really see through it, there's a lightness. Our grandmother by the window, she wasn't enlightened because she had dementia. But accidentally, the disease had removed the weight of identity. And what remained was just this: presence, awareness, being. No story, about who she was. No worry about who she should be. Just life flowing through this form, moment by moment. You don't need to lose your memory to experience this. You just need to stop believing so completely in the story of me and my life. What if, just for a moment, you didn't carry the weight of being somebody? Not as a philosophy, not as something to figure out intellectually, but as an actual experiment, right now. Let go of your history. Let go of what you've achieved or failed to achieve. Let go of your name, your roles, your identity. Let go of the story you've been telling yourself about who you are. What remains? Really, what remains? There's awareness, isn't there? There's this moment, these sensations, this breath moving. There's aliveness, presence. But is there a separate you possessing it? Or is there just this? Just life happening. No owner needed. We've all been deeply conditioned to believe in me and my life. It starts young. This is your toy. This is your room. This is your body. You learn to identify with this form, this mind, this separate entity moving through the world. And it's not wrong that we do this. In the conventional world, it's necessary. But it's not the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth is simpler, lighter, freer than any separate self could ever be. It's this. Just this. Happening now. No one doing it. No one having it. Just the flow of life, momentary, empty, of separate existence, yet so very alive. When you touch this understanding, even briefly, even partially, something falls away. Not your capacity to function, not your ability to care, to love, to engage, but the burden, the heaviness of maintaining and defending a self that was never really there. And what remains is surprisingly simple. Peace. Right here. Not because you've achieved it, but because you've stopped creating its opposite. Right now, wherever you are, you don't need to remember your past. Just for this moment, let the story of your life dissolve. Let it go. All of it. The achievements and the failures. The relationships that shaped you. The choices you've made, the paths you've taken, the person you think you've become. Just this breath, just this moment. What remains? Don't think about it. Don't search for an answer. Just notice What's actually here when you're not rehearsing your history? There's awareness, isn't there? Something knowing this moment. Something aware of these words, this breath, this space you're in. That awareness, it doesn't need your past to exist. It's not constructed from your memories. It's not your achievements looking back at themselves. It's just here, present, now. This is the difference between awareness and me. Me is a story, a collection of memories, things that happened, things you did, things others said about you. A collection of projections, fears about the future, hopes, plans, the person you're trying to become. But awareness? Awareness is simply here. Not yesterday's awareness or tomorrow's awareness. Just this, the knowing of this moment. And here's what's extraordinary. You've never not been aware. Even when you were lost in thought, awareness was there, knowing the thoughts. Even when you were asleep dreaming, awareness was there, knowing the dreams. Even in your worst moments, your most confused moments, awareness was present, witnessing it all. It never comes and goes. Only what you're aware of comes and goes. There was a woman who discovered this accidentally. She lived in a small apartment with a window that faced east. Every morning she'd make tea and sit there, watching the light change. Not meditating, not practicing anything formal, just sitting. She'd watch the darkness soften into grey, then pale blue, then that moment when the first rays touched the building across the street. She'd watch birds land on the windowsill, hop around, fly away. She'd watch her tea steam rising, curling, dissipating into nothing. Sometimes thoughts would come, her to-do list, conversations she needed to have, worries about money. She noticed them the same way she noticed the birds. They'd arrive, stay for a while, leave. She wasn't trying to be anybody during these morning sits. Wasn't trying to be spiritual or peaceful or a good meditator. She'd tried that before, and it felt like work. This was different. This was just being here. Her friends thought she was wasting time, just sitting there staring out a window. But something was happening, though she couldn't have explained it. She was becoming more herself by trying less to be anyone. The constant effort of maintaining her image, her story, her identity, it was quietly falling away. Not through force, not through some spiritual technique, just through the simple act of being present without an agenda. And what remained was this spaciousness, this awareness that had always been here, but that she'd been too busy being somebody to notice. The Buddha said something radical about this. He said, "There is no self in what is seen, heard, sensed, or cognized. Just seeing, just hearing, just sensing. No separate seer, hearer, sensor standing apart from the experience." This sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? How can there be seeing without a seer? How can there be experience without an experiencer? But what's your actual experience right now? Don't think about it. Watch it. Is there really a separate you standing back, observing? Or is there just this? Just awareness and what's arising in awareness. Not two things, but one seamless flow. When you see, do you first exist and then see? Or does seeing simply happen and you call it, "I'm seeing"? When you hear a sound, is there first a hearer, then a hearing, then a sound? Or does sound simply occur, and afterwards, you claim ownership? "I heard that." Look closely. Not with your thinking mind, but with direct observation. What's actually happening? Just this moment arising, complete in itself. No separate you needed to make it more complete. Now, people hear this teaching and sometimes they panic. If there's no self, then what? Who am I? Do I disappear? Is this some kind of void, some terrible emptiness? No. This isn't the emptiness that terrifies. This is the spaciousness that liberates. Think of it this way. When you believe you're a separate self, you're like a wave that thinks it's separate from the ocean. The wave is terrified. I'm so small, so temporary, I'll crash and disappear. It spends all its energy trying to be bigger, more impressive, more permanent than the other waves. But when the wave realizes it's ocean, it's been ocean all along, everything changes. It's not annihilated. It's liberated. Because now it knows, I can't be destroyed. I never was what I thought I was. I'm the vast ocean temporarily taking the form of a wave. You can still function perfectly well without believing in a separate self. You can still work, love, engage, create, relate. In fact, you function better because you're not carrying around the exhausting burden of defending an identity that was never real. You're not constantly asking, do they like me? Am I good enough? Am I safe? Did I do it right? Those questions all assume there's a separate me that needs protecting, validating, improving. When you see through that assumption, the questions simply lose their grip. What replaces them is so much simpler. Just this. Just awareness. Just life flowing, moment after moment, without anyone needing to control it or claim ownership of it. Notice you're aware right now. That's it. That's enough. Nothing needs to be added. No special state needs to be achieved. No enlightenment needs to be attained. Just this simple recognition, awareness, is here. That awareness is closer to you than your own breath, closer than your thoughts. It's what you actually are, beneath all the stories, all the identities, all the becoming. And it's always been here, waiting, patient as the sky. So what exactly are we identifying with when we think we're me? The Buddha was very precise about this. He looked carefully at human experience and saw that what we call self is actually 5 processes, 5 aggregates that we mistakenly bundle together and call I. First, there's form. Rupa. This physical body. This face you see in the mirror. These hands. This shape, moving through space. Second, there's feeling. Vedana. Not emotions, but something more basic, the feeling tone of every experience. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Every single moment has one of these 3 qualities. Third, there's perception. Sana. The recognizing, the labeling, the categorizing. You see a shape and perceive tree. You hear a sound and perceive car. You smell something and perceive coffee. Fourth, there's mental formations. Sankhara. This is the big one. All your habits, reactions, conditioning, the entire structure of what you think of as your personality. Your likes and dislikes, your patterns of thinking, your automatic responses. And fifth, there's consciousness. Vijnana. The knowing of experience. The awareness that something is happening. These 5 aggregates, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, they're constantly arising and passing, changing every moment. And we grab onto them and say, this is me. This is mine. This is who I am. But watch closely. Are any of these things permanent? Your body is changing constantly. Cells dying, new ones forming, aging, shifting. Is that really you? Feelings arise, and pass away. Pleasant becomes unpleasant, becomes neutral, becomes pleasant again. Which feeling is the real you? Perceptions change based on conditions. What you perceive depends on your state, your history, your conditioning. Is that stable enough to be you? Mental formations, your personality, your habits, they shift over time. You're not the same person you were 10 years ago, or even yesterday. So which version is the real you? Even consciousness itself arises depending on conditions. I consciousness arises when I meets form. Ear consciousness arises when ear meets sound. When the conditions aren't there, that particular consciousness isn't there. So if all 5 aggregates are impermanent, constantly changing, dependent on conditions, where exactly is this self you're so sure exists? There was an actor who learned this the hard way. He landed a role playing a villain, a cruel, angry character who hurt everyone around him. It was the biggest part of his career, and he threw himself into it completely. But something strange started happening. Off stage, away from the cameras, he noticed himself becoming irritable, short-tempered, quick to anger at small things. His partner mentioned it. "You're different lately," she said. "Harder somehow." He dismissed it at first. Just stress from work. But then he'd catch himself thinking the way his character thought, speaking in his character's harsh tone, even when he wasn't performing. The character's anger had become his anger. The character's cruelty was leaking into his actual life. One day between takes, sitting alone, he had a sudden clear seeing. I'm not this. The anger, the harshness, these were aggregates he was performing. Mental formations he was temporarily embodying for a role. But somewhere along the way, he'd started identifying with them. Started believing they were him. In that moment, he saw how fluid it all was. How he could put on these patterns like a costume and take them off again. How none of it was solid, none of it was permanent, none of it was truly his. Just aggregates arising, aggregates passing, and the space of awareness in which it all appeared. This is what the Buddha was pointing to. All day long, aggregates are arising and passing. A thought appears, I'm not good enough. That's a mental formation. Where did it come from? Conditioning, past experiences, words someone said to you years ago. It arises based on causes. It will pass when conditions change. But if you identify with it, if you say, I am not good enough, now you're suffering. Because you've taken a temporary mental formation and claimed it as your identity. A feeling arises, anxiety, tightness in the chest, racing thoughts. This is Vedana, unpleasant feeling tone, combined with sankhara, habitual reactions to that feeling tone. But if you identify with it, I am anxious, I am an anxious person, now you're stuck. Because you've turned a passing phenomenon into who you are. Can you watch it differently? Oh, anxiety is here. Just noticing. Not I am anxious, but anxiety is present. Watch it arise. Watch it peak. Watch it fade. Because it will fade. Everything does. And then maybe peace comes. Or maybe boredom. Or maybe hunger. Just more aggregates, arising and passing, like weather moving through a vast open sky. The sky doesn't identify with the weather. It doesn't say, I am cloudy, or I am sunny. It just lets weather pass through. What if you could be like that? Your body ages, but you're not saying, I am aging, as if aging is your fundamental identity. You're watching, oh, the body aggregate is changing. Form is following its nature. A thought passes, but you're not saying, I think this, as if you and the thought are the same thing. You're noticing, oh, a thought has arisen. Mental formation appearing and dissolving. A feeling surges, anger, joy, sadness, but you're not saying, I am angry, I am joyful, I am sad. You're observing, oh, this feeling tone is present now. It arose from causes. It will pass when conditions change. This is what the Buddha meant when he said, clinging to any aggregate as me or mine creates suffering. Not the aggregates themselves. Those are just natural processes. But the grasping, the identifying, the claiming of ownership, that's where the suffering comes from. Because when you believe the aggregates are you, then you have to defend them, control them, improve them, constantly. When your body changes, you suffer because you are changing. When your thoughts are negative, you suffer because you are negative. When your feelings are painful, you suffer because you are in pain. But what if you're not any of these things? What if you're the space in which they all arise? Not trying to stop them, that's just more grasping. Not trying to perfect them, that's more identification. Just watching them arise and pass, like waves on an ocean that you're not. the exhaustion you feel sometimes, that constant tiredness that sleep doesn't fix, a lot of it comes from this. From trying to hold together a self that's made of changing parts. It's like trying to freeze a river. The river is flowing, that's its nature, but you keep trying to make it hold still so you can point and say, "There. That's me. That's who I am." It can't be done. And the effort is exhausting. But when you stop, when you just let the aggregates do what they do, arise and pass without claiming ownership, there's a lightness. You're still here. Life continues. But you're not carrying the weight of being somebody anymore. You're not any of these changing things. You're the awareness in which they appear. The vast spaciousness that has room for all of it. The pleasant and unpleasant. The beautiful and ugly. The wanted and unwanted. And that spaciousness, it never gets tired. It never gets overwhelmed. Because it's not made of anything that can be exhausted. It simply is. Now, this understanding doesn't just live on a meditation cushion. It has to meet daily life. Or what good is it? There was a Zen student who'd been practicing for years. He could sit in meditation for hours, completely still, deeply peaceful. One day, his teacher said, "Tomorrow, go to the busiest marketplace in the city. Find your peace there." The student protested, "But there's so much noise, so many distractions, so many people wanting things." The teacher smiled. "Exactly." So the student went. And the first time, it was overwhelming. The crowds pushing and shoving, vendors shouting their wares, smells of food mixing with exhaust, advertisements everywhere, music blaring from storefronts. His mind went wild. Wanting, resisting, judging, comparing. Within minutes, all his meditation training seemed to evaporate. He went back daily, as his teacher instructed. And slowly, something shifted. He learned to walk through the marketplace, not by shutting down, not by blocking out the chaos, but by staying present with it. Fully present. Seeing, hearing, smelling, wanting, arising, wanting passing. Just noticing it all, without getting swept away by any of it. Eventually, he could walk through the busiest market completely at peace, not because he'd transcended life, but because he'd learned to be fully present to it. This is samasati, right mindfulness. Not some transcendent state where you float above reality. Not zoning out, or achieving a blank mind, but alert, clear, intimate awareness of what's actually happening right now. Seeing and knowing you're seeing. Hearing and knowing you're hearing. Thinking and knowing you're thinking. Not getting lost in the content. Not becoming the thought or the feeling or the sensation. Just noting, oh, this is what's present now. The shopping mall is perfect for this practice. Or the grocery store, the subway, anywhere there are people and noise and things designed to grab your attention. Because advertisements, they're designed to trigger craving. Sophisticated teams of psychologists figuring out exactly how to make you feel incomplete, so you'll buy their product to fill the gap. But when you're mindful, you can see it happening in real time. You're walking past a display window. There's a beautiful coat. First, just seeing. Form, color, texture. The mind might say, beautiful. That's perception, recognizing, labeling. Then maybe a feeling tone arises. Pleasant. A little tug in the chest, a leaning toward. And then, here's where it gets interesting, then comes the thought, I want that. And right behind it, I should have that. And then, if I had that coat, I'd feel confident, attractive, complete. Can you catch it right there? Can you see the whole chain? Seeing, pleasant feeling tone, wanting arising, story building. And here's the key. You don't have to act on it. You don't have to push it away either. You just notice, oh, craving is here. Not I want that coat, but wanting is present. There's a huge difference. One makes you the wanting. Now you have to do something about it, or you'll suffer. The other just observes the wanting as a temporary visitor in awareness. And when you just observe, without getting swept into it, without becoming it, something remarkable happens. The wanting peaks, and then it fades, all on its own. You don't have to make it fade. You don't have to fight it. It just follows its nature, arising and passing away. You keep walking. The coat is behind you now. The wanting is gone. No suffering, no problem. This is freedom. Not freedom from wanting. Wanting will arise. It's natural. But freedom from being enslaved by the wanting. The same with aversion. You're in a crowded place. Someone pushes past you rudely. contact happens, body bumped, balance disturbed. Unpleasant feeling tone arises. And then the mind jumps in. How rude. They should watch where they're going. People these days have no consideration. The whole storm of aversion building from one moment of unpleasant contact. But if you're mindful, you catch it. You feel the body bump. Notice the unpleasant sensation. Watch the irritation start to arise. And you just note, oh, aversion is here. You don't have to act on it. You don't have to suppress it either. Just see it. See how it arises based on conditions. See how it will pass when conditions change. And sure enough, it does pass. Maybe takes 30 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. But it passes. Because everything does. The Buddha said something so simple about this. When walking, know you are walking. When standing, know you are standing. When sitting, know you are sitting. When lying down, know you are lying down. Just this. Just knowing what's actually happening in this moment. Not lost in thoughts about the past. Not lost in plans for the future. Not lost in judgments about what's happening. Just here. Awake to this. You can practice this right now, wherever you are. Feel your feet. Are they touching the ground? Are they on a bed, a chair? Just notice the actual sensation. Pressure, warmth, texture. Feel your breath. Not controlling it, just noticing. The coolness on the inhale, the warmth on the exhale. The gentle rise and fall of the chest or belly. Feel the aliveness in your hands. There's a tingling there, a subtle vibration. Energy flowing. You might not have noticed it before, but it's always there. This is your anchor. The felt sense of the body, alive, here, now. When you're in the busy place, the shopping mall, the crowded street, the chaotic office, you can come back to this. Feel the feet. Feel the breath. Feel the aliveness. And from that anchor, you can notice everything else without getting lost in it. Sounds arising and passing. Sights appearing and disappearing. Thoughts coming and going. Feelings surging and subsiding. All of it just weather in awareness. None of it a problem. None of it requiring you to do anything other than be present with it. This isn't transcending life. This is being fully alive to life. Not somewhere else, wishing you were on a meditation retreat. But right here, in the midst of ordinary chaos, finding the peace that doesn't depend on circumstances being different. Next time you're in a busy place, try this. Just for 5 minutes. Don't judge yourself if your mind wanders. It will. Don't try to force calm. That's just more doing. Just notice. Notice seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling. Notice wanting arising, aversion arising. Notice how it all comes and goes like waves. And notice the space in which it's all happening. That quiet awareness that's always here, always steady, never disturbed by what passes through it. That's the secret. Mindfulness itself is peaceful, regardless of what you're being mindful of. You don't have to be in a quiet room to find peace. You don't have to wait until conditions are perfect. Peace is in the quality of attention you bring, not in what you're paying attention to. There's a story about an artist that reveals something important about all this. She'd worked on a painting for months, poured everything into it, her skill, her vision, her heart. It was the best thing she'd ever created. She displayed it at a gallery. People came, offered praise, admired the technique and the depth of feeling in it. She felt proud, satisfied. This painting, it meant something. It was proof of her talent, her value as an artist. One night, someone broke into the gallery and stole it. When she got the call, there was a moment before the reaction kicked in. A moment of just receiving the information. The painting is gone. And then, here's what matters. Her reaction revealed everything. Was there peace? Or devastation? For her, honestly, it was devastation at first. Anger, grief, a sense of violation. That painting was hers. It represented months of her life. Someone had taken something precious from her. She sat with these feelings for days. Let them move through her without pushing them away. And gradually, something became clear. She'd been attached, not just to the physical painting, to what it meant about her, to the identity it confirmed. I am a talented artist. To the security it promised. I can create valuable things. She'd been clinging to it as proof of her worth. And the theft, unwelcome as it was, showed her the clinging, made it impossible to ignore. This is what the Buddha called upadana, clinging. We don't usually know what we're attached to until it's gone. You might think you're not attached to your phone. It's just a tool, right? But watch what happens if you lose it. Notice the panic, the sense of being cut off, incomplete. You might think you're not attached to your appearance. It's superficial. You know that. But watch what happens when you catch an unflattering reflection or someone comments on how you've aged. Notice the sting, the defensiveness. The burglar becomes an unexpected teacher. Loss reveals what we've been gripping without realizing it. There's a difference between appreciation and clinging. Appreciation says, "This is beautiful while it's here. I'm grateful for this moment with it. When it goes, as all things do, I'll be grateful it was here at all." Clinging says, "This is mine. It completes me. I need it. If I lose it, something essential will be taken from me." One is open-handed. The other is a closed fist. The Buddha taught that clinging to anything impermanent guarantees suffering. Not might cause suffering, guarantees it. Because everything impermanent will change or go away. That's what impermanent means. So if your peace depends on holding on to it, you're setting yourself up for inevitable pain. He described 4 kinds of clinging. 4 ways we grip what cannot be held. First, clinging to sensual pleasures. The taste, the touch, the sight, the sound, the feeling we want to repeat forever. But it fades, doesn't it? The chocolate loses its intensity by the 3rd bite. The song you loved becomes background noise after the 100th listen. Pleasant sensations arise and pass. Trying to hold them is like trying to hold smoke. Second, clinging to views and opinions. How tightly we grip our beliefs about how things should be, what's right and wrong, what's true and false. We'd rather be right than at peace. We'd rather defend our position than see clearly. And when reality doesn't match our views, we suffer. Third, clinging to rites and rituals. The belief that if we just perform the right practices, say the right words, follow the right steps, we'll be saved. But freedom doesn't come from external forms. It comes from seeing clearly. And fourth, the deepest clinging of all, to the belief in an independent, permanent self. This me that we spend our whole lives defending, building up, trying to make secure. The self that we've already seen doesn't exist the way we think it does. These 4 clingings underlie all our suffering. Every anxiety, every disappointment, every moment of feeling insufficient or unsafe. If you look closely, you'll find one of these clingings at the root. But here's what's beautiful. You don't have to eliminate clinging through force. You just have to see it clearly. When you see how you're gripping, when you feel the tension of it, the exhaustion of it, naturally, there's a letting go. Not because you should let go, but because holding on stops making sense. Our artist, sitting with her grief over the stolen painting, at some point, days later, she smiled. Someone asked what she was thinking. She said, "Someone must have loved it enough to take it." Not that the theft was okay. Not that she condoned it. But she'd released her grip on ownership. The painting had existed. It had brought beauty into the world for a time. Now it was somewhere else, maybe bringing beauty to someone else, maybe hidden in darkness. Either way, it was no longer hers to control. And without that need to control, without that clinging to ownership, there was no devastation. Just release. She could create again, would create again, but differently now. With less attachment to the outcome, less need for the work to prove something about her. Just creating for the joy of creating. And whatever happened to the creation after that, well, everything is temporary anyway. So right now in your own life, what are you gripping tightly? Maybe it's a relationship you're terrified of losing. Maybe it's a certain image you're desperate to maintain. Maybe it's security, control, the illusion that you can make things permanent if you just hold on hard enough. Notice it. Not to judge yourself. Clinging is what we all do when we forget the nature of reality. Just notice the sensation of it. Feel how tiring it is to grip so tightly. Feel the fear underneath. If I let go, I'll lose everything. And then, just as an experiment, what if you held it a little more gently? Not throwing it away. Not pretending you don't care. Just holding it the way you'd hold water in your cupped hands. Gently, allowing it to be what it is, knowing it won't last forever, and somehow that's okay. There's something that happens when you stop gripping. A spaciousness opens up. Not emptiness in the scary sense, spaciousness in the liberating sense. Room to breathe. Room for things to be as they are. Room for life to flow without you constantly trying to control its course. And in that spaciousness, you can actually enjoy what's here. Really enjoy it, without the shadow of fear that you'll lose it. Because you already know you'll lose it. Everything is temporary. So you can be fully present with it now, while it's here. The flower in your hand is more beautiful when you're not desperately trying to keep it from wilting. The person you love is more fully met when you're not clinging to them as your source of completion. The moment you're in is more alive when you're not grasping at it or pushing it away. This is what the Buddha discovered under that tree 2,500 years ago. Not some cosmic secret, not some mystical state. Just this: suffering comes from clinging to what cannot be held. And freedom comes from seeing that clearly, so clearly that the clinging naturally releases. You can still have preferences. You can still care deeply about things and people. You can still create, build, strive, engage. But underneath it all, there's this lightness, this understanding that nothing is yours to possess, not even your own life. It's all borrowed for a brief time, all temporary, all flowing through like water through your fingers. And when you really get this, not just intellectually, but in your bones, there's a peace that doesn't depend on anything staying the same. The burglar took the painting. Life takes everything eventually. Your youth, your health, your certainties, the people you love, your very breath. But it can't take what you actually are. That awareness we touched earlier, that spaciousness that holds it all. That's not subject to gain or loss. It was here before you accumulated anything. It'll be here after it's all gone. And it's here now, quietly present, watching these words arrive in your awareness and dissolve away. Watching thoughts come and go. Watching feelings rise and fall. Watching the whole dance of form, none of it a problem, all of it just passing through. So what are you holding tightly today? Maybe you could hold it just a little more gently. Not because you should, not because someone told you to, but because you've seen clearly, seen how the gripping creates suffering and how the release creates space for something truer, lighter, more alive. Just see it. That's all. The seeing itself does the work. And then you can walk through your days, through shopping malls and crowded streets, through gains and losses, through the whole beautiful, painful, temporary dance of being human, with your hands open, ready to receive what comes, ready to release what goes, neither grasping nor rejecting. Just here, just aware, just at peace with what is. There was a man who conquered nations. One by one, he expanded his empire, armies marching across borders, flags planted in foreign soil, territories claimed in his name. Each victory was supposed to be the one that brought lasting satisfaction. After the first conquest, there was euphoria, celebration, recognition, the thrill of achievement. For a few weeks, he felt complete. But then new concerns arose. How to maintain control of this territory? How to defend these new borders? What about the neighboring kingdom? Were they a threat now? So he conquered the neighboring kingdom. And the pattern repeated. Brief satisfaction, then new anxieties. More territory meant more complexity, managing resources, navigating politics, defending longer borders against more enemies. The empire grew, and so did the problems. More wealth, but more people wanting it. More power, but more paranoia about losing it. More recognition, but more pressure to maintain the image. He conquered again. And again, always thinking, this next one will be different. This next victory will finally bring the peace I'm looking for. It never did. On his deathbed, surrounded by the spoils of a lifetime of conquest, he whispered to no one in particular, what was it all for? The Buddha saw this pattern everywhere he looked. Not just in empire builders, but in every human heart. He called it tanha, craving, the origin of suffering. Not desire itself, but the quality underneath desire. The grasping, the belief that your peace depends on getting what you want or avoiding what you don't want. 3 flavors of this craving, he said. I must have this to be complete. Craving for sensual pleasure, for possessions, for experiences that will finally fill the void. I must avoid this to be safe. Craving to escape pain, to eliminate discomfort, to make unpleasant things disappear. I must become this to be worthy. Craving to be someone different, someone better, someone who's finally good enough. And all 3 are rooted in the same misunderstanding, that something is fundamentally wrong with this moment, with this life, with this you. So you reach for the next thing, the next achievement, the next relationship, the next level of success or spiritual attainment, believing that will fix what's wrong. And maybe you get it. Maybe you achieve the goal, acquire the thing, become the person you thought you needed to be. Brief satisfaction. A moment of relief. Finally. And then, so subtle, you might not notice, the wanting returns. Now it's the next thing. Now there's a new gap to fill, a new goal to reach, a new way. You're still not quite enough. The loop is exhausting. Want, get, brief satisfaction, want again. Like drinking salt water to quench your thirst, each drink creates more thirst. Look at human history through this lens, and you see it everywhere. Wars fought over resources because more will make us secure. Exploitation of people and planet because accumulation will make us complete. Endless consumption because the next purchase will finally satisfy. Not because humans are evil. Not because we're fundamentally flawed. But because we're lost in dukkha, lost in this misunderstanding about what will bring peace. And the tragedy is, we pass this down. Generation after generation, teaching our children, you'll be happy when you achieve this, when you acquire that, when you become someone important. So they spend their lives chasing the same mirage we chased. The same mirage their children will chase. Unless someone stops and sees the pattern clearly. Even spiritual seeking can become this. Even the pursuit of enlightenment can be co-opted by the same craving energy. I must become enlightened to be worthy. I must have this spiritual experience to be complete. I must achieve this state of consciousness to finally be at peace. Same pattern, different content. The ego trying to use spirituality to complete itself. This is why manifesting teachings can sometimes perpetuate suffering rather than end it. If you're manifesting from a sense of lack, if the whole project is based on, I'm not enough as I am, so I need to create this reality to become enough, you're just feeding the same craving that caused the suffering in the first place. The thing you manifest might arrive, but the sense of lack won't disappear. Because the lack was never really about the missing thing. It was about not understanding your fundamental completeness. There's a line from a poem that captures something true here. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Those who've sensed something deeper, who've glimpsed that peace doesn't come from achievement, they hesitate. They're not sure anymore that blind striving is the answer. They've lost conviction in the old game. Meanwhile, those completely identified with form, completely convinced that accumulation equals happiness, they charge ahead with passionate intensity. Building empires, conquering territories, manifesting realities, sure that this time, finally, it will be enough. Neither position is wrong. Exactly. Both are part of the human journey. But there's a third possibility the poem doesn't mention. A way of engaging that's neither hesitant nor frantically intense. Action that comes from understanding, not from craving. Creation that flows from wholeness, not from trying to complete yourself. This is what the Buddha was pointing toward. Not the end of action, but the transformation of why and how we act. The Buddha said, One who seeks happiness by hurting others, entangled with enmity, will never be free. But we can extend that. One who seeks happiness by endlessly acquiring, endlessly achieving, endlessly becoming, entangled with craving, will never be free either. Not because acquiring or achieving or becoming are wrong, but because freedom doesn't come from any of that. It never has. So where does it come from? What if peace didn't require achieving anything? What if it was already here, and what's needed isn't more striving, but a different kind of seeing? That's what the path explores. Not how to get somewhere else, but how to wake up to where you already are. The Buddha was very practical about this. He didn't say, just understand that craving causes suffering and you'll be free. He knew understanding alone isn't enough. You need a foundation, training, a way of living that supports the understanding rather than undermines it. He called it the threefold training: sila, samadhi, panna. Moral conduct, concentration, wisdom. Not three separate things, but three aspects of the same path, each supporting the others, like legs of a stool. First, sila, moral conduct. This isn't commandments from on high, not rules you follow because someone said so, but principles that naturally reduce suffering when you live by them. The 5 basic precepts are simple: not killing, reverence for life. When you stop harming living beings, something shifts in you. Fear decreases because you're not creating enemies. Guilt decreases because you're not carrying the weight of harm done. Aggression decreases because you're not feeding the pattern of violence. Not stealing, contentment with what is. When you stop taking what isn't freely given, you stop living in a state of lack. You begin to see, I have enough. This moment is enough. Not misusing sexuality, integrity in intimacy. When you bring honesty and care to sexual energy instead of using it to manipulate or escape, relationships become possible spaces of genuine connection instead of transaction. Not lying, inner alignment. When you stop speaking falsehood, you stop fragmenting yourself. You don't have to track different versions of reality for different people. You can be whole. Not clouding the mind with intoxicants. Clarity. When you stop regularly escaping through substances, you have to face what's actually here. At first uncomfortable, eventually liberating. These aren't moral absolutes imposed from outside. They're observations about what creates conditions for peace and what doesn't. There was a merchant who built his business on clever lies. Not huge deceptions, just small exaggerations, strategic omissions, telling customers what they wanted to hear rather than the truth. It worked, in a way. Sales increased. Profits grew. But he noticed something. He couldn't fully relax around anyone. Always tracking who he'd told what, adjusting his story based on who was listening, maintaining different versions of events for different audiences. It was exhausting. One day, he just stopped. Started telling the truth, even when it cost him a sale. Started being honest about his product's limitations, about what he could and couldn't deliver. At first, it was uncomfortable. He had to face some consequences, customers he'd misled, promises he couldn't keep, the gap between his image and reality. But then something unexpected happened. Relief. Profound relief. He didn't have to carry all those stories anymore. Didn't have to remember who believed what. He could just be himself, say what was true, let people decide based on reality rather than manipulation. And his relationships deepened. When people realized they could trust his word, that he wasn't playing games, they relaxed around him too. Business actually improved, built on something solid now, not on shifting sand. This is what Sila does. It creates a container for practice. When you're not constantly creating chaos through harmful actions, your life becomes workable. Space opens up for deeper seeing. Second, samadhi, concentration. This is about training attention, gathering the scattered mind so it can actually see clearly. Imagine trying to examine something small by candlelight on a windy night. The flame flickers constantly, shadows dance. You can barely make out the details. Steady the flame, and suddenly you can see. Your mind is like that flickering candle, jumping from thought to thought, distracted by every sensation, pulled by every worry about past or future. Samadhi is steadying the flame, not achieving some special trance state, not transcending reality, just training attention to rest on one thing long enough to actually see it. You can practice this with the breath. Simple, just staying with the sensation of breathing, returning when the mind wanders, again and again. Sounds easy. Try it for 5 minutes and you'll see how wild the mind actually is. How it resists staying with even something as simple as breath. But with practice, something shifts. The mind begins to settle. not by force, but by gentle, patient, returning. And when the mind settles, you can see things you couldn't see when it was scattered. You can see how thoughts arise and pass. You can see the space between thoughts. You can see patterns of craving and aversion that were invisible when you were lost in them. This isn't union with some cosmic absolute. It's just a gathered, stable attention that can now do the work of wisdom. And third, panna, wisdom. This can't be figured out intellectually. You can read every book, memorize every teaching, understand all the concepts perfectly, and still not have wisdom. Because wisdom isn't information. It's direct seeing. Seeing impermanence not as a concept, but as the lived reality of this moment changing. Seeing suffering not as a theory, but as what actually happens when you grasp at what can't be held. Seeing non-self not as a philosophy, but as the actual absence of a solid, separate self when you look carefully. There was a meditator who thought he understood impermanence. He'd read the texts, studied the commentaries, could explain it eloquently to anyone who asked. All conditioned things are impermanent, he'd say. Nothing lasts, everything changes. He understood it perfectly. Then he went on a 10-day retreat. Just sitting, watching his breath, paying attention to his actual experience moment by moment for 10 days straight. On the 5th day, something shifted. He was watching his breath, the sensation of air at the nostrils, the slight coolness on the inhale, the warmth on the exhale. And he suddenly felt, in his body, what he'd only understood in his head. Nothing holds still. Not for even a moment. Every sensation was arising and immediately passing away, replaced by another sensation that was also arising and immediately passing away. The inhale becoming the pause, becoming the exhale, becoming the pause. Each moment utterly new, never repeating exactly. His body, which he'd thought of as solid, was revealed as a process. Vibration, flux, constant tiny births, and deaths happening so fast he'd never noticed. He started crying. Not from sadness, from recognition. The concept had become lived reality, and now he couldn't unsee it. Everything he looked at, his hand, the wall, a tree outside, was obviously, viscerally, impermanent. Moment by moment dissolving and reforming. This is panna. Not understanding impermanence as an idea, but seeing it so directly that your relationship to everything changes. And it arises from the combination of sila and samadhi. When your life is workable, because you're not creating constant chaos through harmful actions, and when your attention is stable enough to see clearly because you've trained it, then wisdom has a chance to arise. You can't skip straight to wisdom. Or rather, you can try, but it's like building a house without a foundation. You might have glimpses, brief moments of seeing clearly, but they won't stick because the ground isn't prepared. The Buddha knew this. He said, "Wisdom is purified by moral conduct. Moral conduct is purified by wisdom." They support each other. As you see more clearly, you naturally live more harmlessly. As you live more harmlessly, conditions arise for seeing even more clearly. And the middle piece, concentration, is what makes the seeing possible in the first place. This is gradual training, not instant enlightenment, not a sudden leap to some permanent state of awakening. Just patient, gentle cultivation of these three aspects: moral conduct, concentration, wisdom. Day by day, moment by moment. The Buddha trained for years before his awakening. And after his awakening, he still lived by these same three trainings until his death. Because the peace doesn't come from arriving somewhere. It comes from walking the path itself. Each moment you're living with integrity, your heart is at peace. Each moment your attention is present, you're free from the suffering of distraction. Each moment you're seeing clearly, you're not caught in delusion. That's the peace. Not some future destination, but this alignment of action, attention, and understanding. So the question shifts. Not, how do I achieve enlightenment? But, how do I live in a way that reduces suffering right now? And the answer is simpler than you might think. Live harmlessly. Pay attention. See clearly. That's it. That's the path. Everything else is elaboration on those three. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because we're not just talking about what you do, we're talking about why you do it. The Buddha was very clear about this. He said, "It is intention that I call karma." Not the action itself, but the mind state behind the action. The quality of intention that motivates it. Two people can perform the exact same action with completely different karma. Imagine two people giving the same gift. One gives from genuine care. They saw something that might bring joy, bought it freely, offered it with no expectation of anything in return. The giving itself is the completion. They're not waiting for gratitude or recognition or future favors. The other gives from obligation. It's expected. They have to do it. And underneath, there's resentment. They're giving not from care but from social pressure, maybe even hoping the gift will create indebtedness. Same gift, same wrapping paper, same smile when it's handed over. But completely different karma. Because karma isn't about external consequences. It's about what happens in your own heart. The first person gives and feels light, complete, at peace. They've acted from wholeness. The giving cost them nothing internally because it wasn't coming from lack. The second person gives and feels heavy, resentful, diminished. They've acted from a divided state, doing one thing while feeling another. The giving cost them internally because it came from obligation, not freedom. This is what the Buddha meant by satana, intention. The quality of mind from which action springs. And this brings us back to where we started. What you do is secondary. How you do it is primary. But how doesn't mean technique. It means, are you acting from greed, hatred, and delusion? Or from non-greed, non-hatred, and wisdom? Are you acting from craving, trying to complete yourself, defend yourself, make yourself more? Or from understanding, seeing what's needed, and responding skillfully? There was a carpenter who inherited his father's shop. At first, he resented it. He'd wanted to be an architect, to design grand buildings, to create something important. Instead, here he was making simple furniture, chairs, tables, cabinets. Ordinary stuff. For years he worked with resentment. Each project felt beneath him. He was capable of more, he thought. This was just survival, not creation. But circumstances kept him there. Family obligations, financial necessity. So he kept working, kept building furniture, kept feeling that his life was somehow less than it should be. Then something shifted. He couldn't even say exactly when or how. But one day, he was cutting a piece of wood, and he really felt it. The grain, the texture, how it wanted to be cut. Not forcing the saw through, but working with the wood, respecting its nature. He started bringing full attention to each joint, each measurement, each stroke of sandpaper. Not rushing to finish, not thinking about the next project. Just this wood, this moment, this precise action. The wood taught him patience. You can't hurry oak. It splits if you force it, reveals its beauty if you respect it. The work taught him precision. a fraction off in the measurement, and the joint won't hold. But get it exact and there's a rightness you can feel. Gradually, his furniture changed. Same designs, same basic function. But something in them was different now. People would sit in one of his chairs and pause. This feels. They'd search for the word peaceful. They couldn't articulate what was different, but they could feel it. The chair held them differently than other chairs. Something in the quality of its making had carried through into the quality of its being. One customer said, "When I sit in your chair, I feel like I can finally rest." The carpenter had infused his practice into his craft. Not intentionally, not as a technique. Just by bringing full presence to each moment of making. His work had become meditation, or meditation had become his work. They weren't separate anymore. This is right intention, samma sankappa. The Buddha described 3 aspects of it. Renunciation, letting go of grasping as your motivation. Not creating from, "I need this to be complete," but from, "This wants to be done and I'm available." Goodwill, acting from genuine care, not from manipulation or control. Wanting to benefit, not wanting to use. Harmlessness, not seeking to harm, even subtly. Not acting from aggression, even when it's dressed up as righteousness. When intention is purified, when it's coming from renunciation, goodwill, harmlessness, then right action naturally follows. Right action, samma kamanta, isn't a different thing. It's what flows when intention is clear. Work becomes a vehicle for presence. Parenting becomes a vehicle for love. Art becomes a vehicle for truth. Even conversation becomes a vehicle for genuine meeting. Not what you do, but the mind you bring to it. You can be a CEO or a janitor. The form doesn't matter. What matters is whether you're bringing craving or clarity to what you do. There's a difference between creating from lack and creating from wholeness. Creating from lack says, "This will make me important. This will make me complete. This will make me safe." The whole project is designed to fill an inner void. But the void can't be filled that way. Because the void isn't actually empty. It's full of the craving itself. You're trying to fill craving with objects, and craving just grows. Creating from wholeness says, "This wants to be done. I'm here. I'm available." Not I, as a separate ego, trying to accomplish something, but awareness responding skillfully to what's needed. No cosmic consciousness using you as a puppet. That's a misunderstanding. Just clarity revealing the skillful response in this moment. When you're not lost in craving, when you're not driven by the need to complete yourself, you can see more clearly what's actually needed. And you can respond to that without the distortion of self-agenda. The Buddha said, "The thought manifests as the word manifests as the deed develops into habit, and habit hardens into character." It starts with intention, the quality of thought, the mind state you're operating from. That shapes your words. Words coming from craving sound different than words coming from care, even if they say the same thing. You can hear the difference, feel the difference. Your words shape your actions. Actions repeated become habits. Habits solidify into what you call your character, your personality, who you think you are. So it all traces back to intention. The quality of mind in this moment, which means freedom is available in this moment. Not after you've changed your whole life, not after you've achieved some perfect state. Right now, with the next thought, the next word, the next action. Notice your intention before you speak. Are you speaking from care or from ego? From genuine desire to communicate or from desire to impress? From honesty or from manipulation? Just notice. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to only speak. When intention is pure, you'd never speak. But the noticing itself changes things. Because when you see the intention clearly, you have a choice. You can act from it, or you can let it pass and wait for clearer intention to arise. Notice your intention before you act. Why are you doing this? What's the mind state underneath? Are you trying to prove something, get something, avoid something? Or is this action coming from a place of genuine response to what's needed? That noticing, that simple awareness of intention, it changes everything. Not all at once, not dramatically, but gradually, like water shaping stone, the quality of your life shifts. Because you're no longer unconsciously driven by craving and aversion. You're beginning to see the patterns, the conditioning, the automatic reactions. And in the seeing, in the clear recognition of what's actually happening, freedom begins. Not freedom to control everything, but freedom from being controlled by unconscious patterns. This is the path. Not somewhere else you need to go, but right here, learning to act from understanding rather than compulsion, from presence rather than distraction, from wisdom rather than delusion. Moment by moment, breath by breath, one intention at a time. The empire builder on his deathbed asked, what was it all for? If he'd understood this earlier, he might have conquered nations anyway. Or he might have tended a garden. The external form doesn't matter as much as we think. But the internal quality, that matters infinitely. Because peace isn't found in what you achieve. It's found in how you meet this moment. In the quality of intention you bring to this breath, this action, this choice, right now. And that's available to you, whether you're building empires or washing dishes, whether you're creating art or balancing accounts, whether your life looks important or ordinary from the outside. The question isn't what you do. The question is, can you do it from wholeness? Can you bring presence to it? Can you act from understanding rather than from the desperate need to complete yourself? If you can, even for one moment, even imperfectly, you've touched the path. And that one moment makes the next moment possible. And gradually, step by patient step, the path reveals itself as you walk it. Not because you're becoming someone different, but because you're finally showing up as you actually are, aware, present, responsive to this moment without the weight of craving, distorting everything you do. This is what was always possible. This is what's possible right now. There was a potter who spent months creating a series of bowls. Each one shaped carefully, glazed with precision, infused with her full attention. She loaded them into the kiln for the final firing, the moment that would either set the glaze beautifully or destroy everything. Kilns are unpredictable. Temperature spikes, oxygen levels, 100 variables she couldn't control. She'd lost entire batches before to kiln accidents. Her assistant kept checking, anxious. What if they crack? What if the glaze runs? All that work. The potter stayed calm. We'll see what emerges. When the kiln cooled and they opened it, 3 bowls were perfect. 2 had cracked beyond repair. 1 had developed an unexpected pattern in the glaze, a flaw that somehow made it more beautiful than anything she'd planned. The assistant was distraught about the broken ones, thrilled about the perfect ones, confused about the flawed but beautiful one. The potter just smiled. The kiln teaches what we can't control, she said. Every firing is a lesson in letting go. She didn't celebrate the perfect bowls as proof of her skill. Didn't despair over the broken ones as personal failure. Didn't cling to the outcome either way. Just present with what emerged, responding skillfully to what was actually there. This is equanimity. Not indifference to outcomes, but freedom from being destroyed by them. When obstacles appear in your path, and they will, there are two ways to meet them. The old pattern goes like this: resistance, complaint, this shouldn't be happening. Anger at the obstacle, at whoever created it, at the universe for allowing it. Collapse into victimhood or rage. All that energy goes into fighting what is, and fighting what is never works. What is? Your resistance doesn't change it. It just adds suffering on top of the situation. Equanimity meets obstacles differently. This is happening. What's the wise response? Not, why is this happening to me? Not, this is unfair. Not, someone's going to pay for this. Just clear seeing. These conditions have arisen. What does wisdom suggest I do now? This isn't passivity. It's engaged wisdom. Sometimes the wise response is to work around the obstacle. Sometimes it's to wait. Sometimes it's to change direction entirely. Sometimes it's to push through with sustained effort. But you can only see the wise response when you're not collapsed into reactivity. The Buddha described 4 aspects of right effort: sama, vayama, and they apply beautifully to meeting obstacles. First, prevent unwholesome states from arising. When the obstacle appears, don't let your mind immediately spiral into catastrophe. Don't tell yourself disaster stories about what this means. Catch the catastrophizing before it takes hold. Second, abandon unwholesome states that have arisen. If you've already started complaining, blaming, collapsing, notice it and let it go. Release the story. Come back to what's actually here. Third, arouse wholesome states. Invite curiosity instead of complaint. Invite patience instead of urgency. What can I learn from this? What's actually needed here? Fourth, maintain wholesome states. When you find presence, when you find patience, protect it. Keep coming back to it as conditions try to pull you back into reactivity. Let's make this concrete. Say you're working on a project, something important to you, something you've invested time and energy into, and it gets blocked. Funding falls through, or a key person quits, or circumstances shift, and suddenly the whole thing is in jeopardy. First reaction might be anger. This is wrong. This shouldn't have happened. Who's responsible? How could they do this? Blame starts looking for a target. The system, the person who made the decision, fate itself. And you can feel it in your body. The heat, the tension, the adrenaline of fight mode. But then, pause. Just pause. Take a breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Return to presence. Not by forcing anything, just by stopping the momentum of reactivity for a moment. And from that pause, look clearly. What's actually here? What's really needed? Maybe you see that the obstacle is revealing a flaw in the original plan. Something you couldn't see before because you were too close to it. The blocking is actually useful information. Or maybe the obstacle is opening an unexpected path. A different direction you would never have considered if the original plan had succeeded. A better direction, though you couldn't have known it at the time. Or maybe the obstacle is teaching you patience, resilience, the capacity to work with difficulty instead of demanding everything go your way. You can't see any of this when you're collapsed into, "This shouldn't be happening." You can only see it when you meet what is with some degree of equanimity. This isn't positive thinking. It's not pretending the obstacle is actually a gift, or that everything happens for a reason. It's conditionality thinking. Because of this, that arose. Now what are my options? Realistic, clear-eyed, not adding stories of disaster or salvation. Just seeing these conditions, this situation, these possibilities. The Buddha taught something useful about this. He talked about 2 arrows. The first arrow is pain. Injury happens, loss happens, disappointment happens. That's the first arrow, life's unavoidable difficulties. The second arrow is our resistance to the pain. This is unfair suffering. The why me suffering. The whole story we build about how this shouldn't be happening and what it means about us and our lives. The first arrow hurts. No way around that. Reality includes pain, loss, things not going the way we hoped. But the second arrow, that one's optional. We shoot ourselves with it through resistance, through refusing to accept what's already happened, through demanding reality to be different than it is. Equanimity isn't avoiding the first arrow. It's not shooting yourself with the second one. Next time something goes wrong, and it will, because that's the nature of conditioned existence, try this. Pause. Breathe. Feel the ground under you. And ask yourself, can I meet this without adding my story about how it shouldn't be? Can I be with the actual pain, the actual difficulty, without the extra layer of "this is unfair," or "I'm being punished," or "everything always goes wrong for me"? Just, this is what's happening. This is the situation. What now? The power isn't in forcing outcomes. You can't control whether horses run away or return, whether your project succeeds or gets blocked, whether life unfolds the way you hoped. The power is in not being destroyed by what happens. In meeting each moment, the wanted and the unwanted, the pleasant and the painful, the victories and the defeats, with a steady mind that doesn't collapse into reactivity. This is what equanimity offers. Not a life without difficulties. That's impossible. But a heart that can hold difficulties without breaking. Now, here's the thing about equanimity. It shows you very clearly when you've lost it. Aversion is the signal. The Buddha talked about 3 poisons that keep us trapped in suffering: greed, hatred, delusion, or in Pali, lobha, dosa, moha. Dosa, aversion, hatred, includes everything from mild irritation to full rage. All the flavors of "this should not be." And when aversion arises, it's not your enemy. It's your teacher, showing you where you've forgotten something important. There's a story about a meditation teacher who got stuck in traffic. He was running late for a talk he was giving on patience. He felt anger rising. These incompetent drivers. Why can't people merge properly? Don't they know some of us have important places to be? And then he caught himself and laughed. Here he was, on his way to teach about patience, completely impatient. On his way to teach about presence, completely lost in angry thoughts. He noticed the anger wasn't helping. It wasn't making the traffic move faster. It wasn't solving anything. It was just creating suffering, tension in his body, harsh thoughts in his mind, disconnection from this actual moment. He arrived late. Started his talk by saying, "I just learned something about patience in traffic. Let me tell you what anger teaches when you're willing to listen to it." The anger had been a bell of mindfulness, a signal that he'd drifted from presence into reactivity. This is how aversion functions when you understand it. Not as a problem to eliminate, but as information. I am never upset for the reason I think. This line comes from a different teaching tradition, but it translates beautifully into Buddhist understanding. The surface reason you're upset: he disrespected me. She broke her promise. They're so frustrating. The Wi-Fi is too slow. The weather is wrong. But the deeper cause? You've forgotten something. You've forgotten anatta, that there's no solid, separate self being disrespected. You've forgotten anicca, that everything changes, including promises and circumstances. You've lost mindfulness. You're not present with what is. You're arguing with reality in your head. When you're connected to wisdom, small things don't shatter your peace. The Wi-Fi is slow. Okay, it's slow. The weather isn't what you hoped. Okay, it isn't. Someone speaks harshly. Okay, harsh speech is happening. None of it needs to become a crisis. None of it needs to trigger the whole cascade of aversion and suffering. But when you've drifted from presence, even tiny things become major. The smallest frustration feels like an assault. Everything is evidence that life is against you, that you can't catch a break, that nothing ever works out. So upset becomes a bell, a signal. You've drifted. Come back. Not a sign you've failed. Not evidence you're not spiritual enough, or evolved enough, or practicing correctly. Just a simple notification. You're lost in thought, lost in reaction, lost in the story of me and what shouldn't be happening to me. Time to return. The practice is simple. When aversion arises, note it. Aversion is here. Not I am angry, as if you and the anger are the same thing. Just anger is present. And then watch it. With some curiosity, some space around it. Watch it arise. There's the trigger, there's the unpleasant sensation, there's the thought, this shouldn't be. There's the heat in the chest, the tightness in the jaw. Watch it peak. The anger builds. Thoughts accelerate. Maybe you speak sharply or slam something down. Watch it fade, because it will. Everything does. Anicca applies to anger too. Give it a few minutes without feeding it with more thoughts, and it naturally subsides. This is radically different from I am angry. When you identify with the anger, you become it. It runs you, speaks through you, makes decisions for you. But when you watch it as a process arising and passing, you're free. Free to feel it without becoming it. Free to let it move through without causing harm. Why are we upset so much of the day? Look closely at your actual experience. Traffic is slow. Irritation. Wi-Fi lags. Frustration. Someone's tone is sharp. Offense. The weather is wrong. Disappointment. Your body aches, resentment, countless small aversions throughout the day. Each one a moment where you're arguing with reality. Each one optional suffering. Reality doesn't care if you approve of it. Traffic moves at the speed it moves. Weather does what weather does. Bodies age and ache. People speak however they speak. Your aversion doesn't change any of it. It just adds suffering on top of the situation. And listen, you're not broken if you get upset. You're human, with human conditioning. We've all been trained to resist what's unpleasant, to fight against what we don't like, to believe our comfort is more important than reality's unfolding. The path isn't perfection. The path is the return. You get upset. You notice. You return to presence. You get upset again. You notice again. You return again. 10,000 times. 100,000 times. Each return is the practice. Each noticing is freedom beginning. The Buddha said something memorable about anger. He said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. You think you're punishing them by staying angry. You think your aversion is protecting you, or teaching them a lesson, or maintaining your dignity. But who's suffering? Who's carrying the hot coal? Not them. You. The anger burns in your body, disturbs your sleep, narrows your perception, clouds your wisdom. And the person you're angry at might not even know, might not care, might have forgotten the whole incident. So today, just as an experiment, notice when aversion arises. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to make it go away. You don't have to be perfectly patient or loving or accepting. Just see it clearly. That's all. Just recognition. Oh, aversion is here. That's seeing. That's simple, clear recognition. That's freedom, beginning. Not freedom from ever feeling aversion again. Freedom from being enslaved by it, from letting it run your life, from burning yourself with coals you're trying to throw at others. Now, there's something subtle here that needs clarification. Because you might hear all this teaching about releasing craving, letting go of desire, not grasping, and think, so I should want nothing. No. That's a misunderstanding. The Buddha didn't teach desire nothing. He taught, discern between craving and wholesome desire. There's a Pali word, tanha, that gets translated as craving or thirst. This is desire rooted in illusion, in the belief that you're incomplete and need something external to complete you. It feels frantic, driven, desperate. I need this to be happy. I must have it, or I won't be okay. I have to become this, or I'm worthless. Tanha has 3 flavors the Buddha described. Sensual craving for pleasant sights, sounds, tastes, textures, experiences. The endless wanting of more, better, different. Craving for existence, the desire to become something, to be someone important, to secure your identity, to make yourself permanent. Craving for non-existence, the desire to escape, to not be, to annihilate discomfort, to make unpleasant things disappear. All 3 share this quality, desperation. All 3 are rooted in the belief that you're fundamentally lacking something. But there's another word, chanda, wholesome desire. The desire to practice. The desire to understand. The desire to reduce suffering in yourself and others. The desire to live with integrity, to act skillfully, to see clearly. This doesn't feel frantic. It feels calm, clear, aligned. The Buddha himself had this kind of desire. Desire to awaken, desire to teach, desire to help beings find freedom from suffering. Without that wholesome desire, he would have stayed under the tree, never shared the teaching. So the question isn't whether you desire. Desire arises naturally. The question is, what kind of desire is this? Let's make it concrete again. 2 people want financial security. Person A says, I must be rich, or I'm worthless. Money is the only thing that matters. I'll do anything to get it. Betray people, cut corners, compromise my integrity, whatever it takes. That's Tanha. Craving rooted in the belief that money will complete him, that his worth depends on his wealth. Person B says, I'd like financial stability so I have time and energy for practice, so I can be generous without constant stress, so I'm not consumed by worry and can be present with my life. That's chanda, wholesome desire that supports practice and reduces suffering. Same surface want, financial security, completely different mind states underneath. Remember the shopping mall we talked about earlier? You're walking through, seeing beautiful objects in windows. Tanha looks at the coat and says, I need that. It will make me attractive, confident, complete, Everyone will see I've made it. I won't be okay until I have it. The wanting is tight, urgent, compelling. If you don't get the coat, there's genuine distress. Chanda, or maybe just simple appreciation, looks at the coat and says, "That's lovely. Beautiful design. Nice craftsmanship." And then keeps walking. No grasping, no sense that you need it, no story about what it would mean about you. Just seeing beauty, appreciating it, letting it be. Can you feel the difference? One is compulsive, driven by underlying dukkha, trying to escape the sense of incompleteness. The other is intentional, clear about motivation, not driven by lack. And here's what's beautiful. You can enjoy form without clinging to it. This is the freedom the Buddha pointed to. There was a monk who loved art. He'd visit museums, spend hours looking at paintings, marveling at the beauty humans could create. He owned nothing, had no desire to possess any of it, wasn't attached to whether he'd ever see these paintings again. But he enjoyed them fully. More fully maybe than people who owned art, because he wasn't worried about protecting it, or maintaining it, or whether it would increase in value. He could just see, just appreciate, just be present with beauty without needing to own it. This is possible. You can engage with life, enjoy pleasures, appreciate beauty, want things, all without the suffering of craving. The difference is in the quality of the wanting. Advertising knows this, by the way. The entire industry is built on triggering tanha. Every ad is essentially saying, "You're not enough without this product. Buy it, and you'll be complete, attractive, successful, happy." When you're rooted in wisdom, ads lose their power. You see them clearly. Oh, they're trying to create craving where none existed. How interesting. You're not fooled into thinking a car will make you free, or a watch will make you significant, or a soft drink will make you joyful. You see through the game. And from that seeing, you're free to choose. Do I actually need this? Or am I being manipulated into wanting it? This is the Buddha's middle way applied to desire. Not ascetic self-denial, torturing yourself, rejecting all pleasure, living in grim renunciation. That's just another form of suffering. Not indulgent consumption, endlessly acquiring, always wanting more, believing happiness comes from accumulation. That's the suffering of craving. But a wise relationship with form, gratitude without grasping, enjoyment without clinging, appreciation without the desperate need to possess. You can eat a delicious meal and truly savor it without needing to eat that meal every day for the rest of your life. You can enjoy a beautiful sunset without needing to capture it, post it, prove you saw it. You can love someone deeply without needing to own them, control them, make them permanent. This is what freedom looks like. Not freedom from life, but freedom within life. So here's an invitation for you. Notice the flavor of your wanting. When desire arises, and it will, constantly, just pause for a moment and check. Does this feel desperate, driven, frantic? Or does it feel clear, calm, intentional? Are you wanting from a sense of lack, trying to complete yourself with this thing? Or wanting from wholeness, responding skillfully to actual needs? You don't have to judge yourself either way. Tanha will arise. You're human. You've been conditioned this way. The point isn't to eliminate all craving through force of will. The point is to see it clearly. To know, this is tanha arising. This is how it feels in the body. This is the thought pattern that accompanies it. And in that clear seeing, wisdom arises. Not because you're trying to be wise, but because seeing clearly is what wisdom is. You might still want the thing. You might even get the thing. But you won't be enslaved by the wanting. You won't believe your happiness depends on getting it. You won't be devastated if you don't. The wanting becomes lighter, more transparent, less solid. Just another phenomenon arising and passing in awareness, like everything else. And from that lightness, you can engage with life fully, wanting, creating, enjoying, experiencing all of it, without the suffering that comes from thinking any of it will finally complete you. Because you're already complete. You've always been complete. You just forgot for a while. And the practice, meeting obstacles with equanimity, noticing aversion as it arises, discerning between craving and wholesome desire, all of this is just remembering. Remembering what you actually are beneath all the wanting and resisting, all the grasping and pushing away. Just this. Just awareness. Just presence. Meeting each moment, the pleasant and the painful, the wanted and the unwanted, with a heart that's learning, slowly, patiently, to stay open. This is the practice. And it continues, breath by breath, moment by moment, for as long as this life lasts. There was a grandmother who spent her days tending a small garden. Nothing grand, nothing that would make the news. just a patch of earth behind her house where she grew vegetables and flowers. Every morning, she'd water the plants, pull weeds carefully, gently, talking to them as if they were old friends. In the afternoon, she'd sit on a bench under a tree, watching light move through the leaves. She had no platform, no following, no grand mission to change the world. Just this, the garden, the sitting, the quiet days unfolding one after another. But something interesting began to happen. Neighbors started finding reasons to stop by. Just checking in, they'd say. Or wondering if you need anything from the store. And they'd end up staying, sitting with her under the tree, not talking much, just being there. One neighbor said, "I don't know what it is about this place. When I'm here, everything that was so urgent suddenly doesn't feel so urgent anymore." Another said, "You have this way of listening that makes me feel like I'm not alone." The grandmother never tried to teach them anything, never spoke about practice or wisdom or how to live. She just tended her garden and sat under her tree, at peace with what is. And somehow, that peace was contagious. This is what happens when someone cultivates sila, moral conduct, and lives from it. The environment around them shifts. Not mystically, not magically, but practically, tangibly. When you're not creating chaos through harmful actions, when you're not spreading reactivity and complaint, when you're genuinely at peace, that affects everyone you encounter. The Buddha talked about 4 qualities that radiate naturally from practice. He called them the Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes. Metta, loving kindness. Not a feeling you force, but genuine goodwill that arises when you see clearly. When you understand that everyone is struggling with their own confusion, their own suffering, goodwill becomes natural. Karuna, compassion. Responding to suffering with care instead of aversion. When you're not so caught in your own reactivity, you have space to meet others' pain without being overwhelmed by it. Mudita, sympathetic joy. Delight in others' happiness, others' success. When you're not comparing constantly, not measuring yourself against everyone else, you can genuinely celebrate when good things happen to others. Upekkha, equanimity. That balanced, wise presence that doesn't get shaken by every change. Not indifference, but a steadiness that comes from seeing clearly how things arise and pass. These aren't practices you do separately from life. They're the natural fragrance of a heart that's being purified through practice. Like flowers don't try to smell good, it's just their nature. When these qualities are cultivated, they radiate. And they affect others. Your calm literally reduces others' anxiety. Not through words, not through trying to calm them, but through nervous system to nervous system communication. When you're regulated, peaceful, grounded, others feel it. Their nervous systems respond to yours. They don't know why, but they feel safer around you, steadier. Your kindness inspires others' generosity, not because you're preaching at them, but because kindness is contagious. One genuine act of care ripples out, makes the next act of care more possible. Your equanimity steadies chaotic situations. When everyone else is panicking and you're present, that presence becomes an anchor. People orient toward it without consciously realizing they're doing so. There was a nurse who worked in an emergency room. Chaos was her daily reality. Trauma, grief, life and death, decisions made in seconds. For years, she burned out repeatedly. The intensity was too much, the suffering too constant. She'd go numb just to survive the shifts. Then she started practicing metta meditation. 20 minutes before each shift, sitting in her car, sending goodwill. To herself first, then to whoever she'd encounter that day. She didn't expect it to change anything. It was just something to try, a way to prepare her heart for what was coming. But things did change. Patients started saying things like, "When you're here, I feel safe." Even in the midst of their pain, their fear, something about her presence settled them. Doctors noticed it too. "The room changes when you enter," one said. "I don't know what it is, but everything feels more manageable." It wasn't magic. It was her nervous system. Through practice, she'd learned to stay regulated, even in chaos. Not numb, not checked out, but present and steady. And that steadiness was palpable. Her patients' nervous systems, her colleagues' nervous systems, they responded to hers. Co-regulation, scientists call it. The way one calm presence can help regulate an entire field of distress. This is the ripple effect of practice. You don't need to do anything grand to contribute. You don't need a platform or a following or a mission statement. Sometimes the deepest contribution is simply being someone who isn't adding to the collective reactivity. Being one person who doesn't spread panic when everyone else is panicking. Being one person who doesn't engage in gossip when everyone else is tearing someone down. Being one person who doesn't hatred when hatred is everywhere. Just by not participating in the unconscious patterns, you're already transforming the field. There are ancient stories, the Jataka tales, about the Buddha's past lives. In some stories, he was a prince, a teacher, a leader, doing grand things. In others, he was a patient elephant who endured mistreatment without retaliating, or a generous bird who shared food when others were starving. The value wasn't in the scale of the action. It was in the quality of heart behind it. The prince and the bird were both practicing the same thing, showing up with wisdom, with care, with presence, regardless of the form their life took. Your life might look important or ordinary from the outside. It doesn't matter. What matters is, are you bringing awareness to it? Are you living from understanding rather than from unconscious reactivity? Are you reducing suffering where you are, in whatever small ways are possible? The Buddha said, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, we cannot live without a spiritual life. Not spiritual in the sense of religious or mystical. Spiritual in the sense of connected to something deeper than the surface scramble for security and significance. Connected to wisdom, to presence, to the understanding that reduces suffering rather than multiplies it. Your peace matters. Not just for you, for everyone you encounter. The checkout clerk who's having a terrible day. Your children who absorb your state more than your words. The stranger on the bus who's drowning in their own thoughts. When you meet them from presence instead of distraction, from kindness instead of irritation, from steadiness instead of reactivity, something shifts in the field between you. You might never know the impact. The grandmother under her tree didn't know she was giving her neighbors something they desperately needed. She was just tending her garden. But that's how it works. Real transformation is usually quiet, invisible, unmeasured. You practice not for recognition, not for spiritual points, not to become someone special. You practice because it reduces suffering. And when suffering decreases in you, it decreases around you. This is your offering, not something you have to figure out or create. Just this, your presence, your peace, your genuine care. Already enough, already complete, already transforming the world in ways you'll never fully see. Now, sometimes people practice for years and still feel lost about what they're supposed to do with their lives. What their work should be, what direction to take. And there's this pressure from society, from your own mind, to have it figured out, to have a plan, a purpose, a clear path forward. But wisdom doesn't work like that. There was a woman who left her corporate job. She'd climbed the ladder, checked all the boxes, achieved what she was supposed to achieve, and felt completely hollow. So she quit. Everyone asked, "What's next? What are you going to do?" She didn't know, and that not knowing terrified her. For 2 years, she just practiced. Sitting meditation every morning. Walking meditation through the park. Just being present with what is, without trying to figure anything out. People thought she was wasting time. "You need a plan," they said. "You can't just sit around waiting for inspiration." But she resisted the pressure because she knew, somewhere deeper than thought, that she couldn't think her way to clarity. She had to see her way there. And then one morning, after 2 years of this quiet practice, she woke up and simply knew. Not a voice from the heavens, not a burning bush or a sign from the universe, just clear knowing arising from within. I'm meant to work with dying patients. That. She'd never considered this before. Had no training in hospice care. But the knowing was unshakable. So she followed it. Got the training, started volunteering, eventually made it her work. And it was right. Not because some cosmic force was directing her, but because wisdom had ripened enough to see clearly what was needed. This is how Panna, wisdom, guides action. Not through cosmic messages or divine intervention. Through the clarity that develops when your life is aligned. When sila is established, when you're not creating constant chaos through harmful actions, your life becomes workable. Space opens up. When samadhi is developed, when your mind is stable enough to see clearly instead of constantly scattered, you can perceive things you couldn't see before. And then Panna arises, direct seeing of what's actually needed, not what ego wants, not what fear demands, but what wisdom reveals. It's not the universe using you. That's a misunderstanding that creates spiritual confusion. You are interconnected with everything. In that sense, you are the universe, not separate from it. But there's no separate cosmic agent puppeteering your actions. What happens is simpler. Conditions ripen, and action emerges naturally. Dependent origination, one thing leading to another, no separate doer required. Sometimes wisdom says, keep doing what you're doing, just with more presence. Not everyone is called to dramatic change. Not everyone needs to quit their job and find their true calling. Maybe you're an accountant and you'll stay an accountant. But now you bring mindfulness to the numbers. Now you treat clients with genuine care instead of just processing transactions. Now you work without the desperate need to prove yourself or accumulate more. That's enough. That's the transformation. The form of your life doesn't have to change for the quality of your life to transform completely. Sometimes wisdom says, time to shift. And when it does, you know. Clearly, without doubt. Not forced, not grasping for something different, because you're running away from what is. Just obvious. Like seeing the next step on a path that's right in front of you. The Buddha talked about right livelihood, sama ajiva, work that doesn't harm, work that serves, contributes, reduces suffering in some way. This can look like anything. Can be simple or complex, prestigious or humble. A teacher shaping young minds. A janitor creating clean, safe spaces. An artist bringing beauty into the world. A nurse tending the sick. A parent raising children with awareness and care. None of these is inherently more valuable than the others. What matters is the intention behind the work, the quality of presence brought to it. The question shifts. Not, what do I want to manifest? Which often comes from ego, from the need to create an impressive life that proves your worth. But what does wisdom reveal is needed, which comes from seeing clearly, from being available to respond skillfully to what's actually here. There was a businessman who built a successful financial empire. Money, recognition, power, he had it all. And felt hollow. He tried ignoring the feeling, tried filling it with more success, more acquisitions, more of everything he'd been chasing. Nothing worked. Then his mother was dying. He sat with her in the hospital, week after week, just sitting, being present with her fear, her pain, her gradual letting go. And in that space, something became clear. His gift wasn't building empires. His gift was this, being able to stay present with suffering without needing to fix it or run from it. After his mother died, he started volunteering at hospice. Eventually left the business world entirely. Spent his days sitting with dying patients, offering nothing but his presence. No impressive title, no recognition, no accumulation of wealth or status. And for the first time in his life, he felt fulfilled. Not because he'd achieved something, but because he'd finally stopped trying to achieve his way to completion. He'd found his place, just being available, being present, being with. So if you don't know what to do with your life, practice. Don't think harder about it. Don't force a decision. Don't panic about not having a clear plan. Just practice. Cultivate sila, samadhi, panna. Live harmlessly. Pay attention. See clearly. Clarity comes not from thinking harder, but from seeing clearer. And when the time is right, when conditions have ripened, you'll know. Not as a thought, not as a plan, but as a clear seeing. This is what's needed. This is what I'm here to offer. Now, there's one more trap to watch for. Subtle, easy to miss, but dangerous. Spiritual identity. You practice for years, make progress, see some things clearly, and then the ego sneaks back in, wearing spiritual robes. I am enlightened. I am a serious practitioner. I am more conscious than others. All just more ego. All just more form clinging. All just another identity to defend and maintain. There was a monk who'd practiced for decades, lived simply, followed his precepts, sat in meditation daily. Someone met him at the market and asked, "Are you a Buddhist?" He paused, genuinely considered the question, then said, "I don't know. I just try to live without causing harm. No identity to defend. No spiritual status to maintain. No need to claim membership in any group or achievement of any level. Just this life, lived as skillfully as possible, without the weight of being somebody special. This is what it means to walk as nobody in particular. You still have functions, of course. Teacher, parent, accountant, friend. These are useful labels for navigating the conventional world. But you don't believe that's who you ultimately are. You hold these roles lightly, like costumes worn for a play. You can be a teacher when teaching is happening, but you're not a teacher in your essence. You can be a parent when parenting is needed, but you're not a parent as your fundamental identity. The freedom of this is extraordinary. No superiority. I'm spiritual. They're not. No looking down on people who don't practice, who don't get it. No inferiority. They're so advanced, I'm failing. No comparing your practice to others, feeling inadequate because you're not as far along. Just humans at various stages of waking up. All equally worthy, all equally struggling in their own way. Watch gossip, and you'll see ego inflation in action. Every time you diminish another person, your ego feels a little bigger. Did you hear what she did? Terrible. There's a pleasure in judgment, isn't there? A temporary sense of superiority. You're better than them because you wouldn't do that, wouldn't make that mistake, wouldn't be so unconscious. It's subtle, and it happens in spiritual communities as much as anywhere else. Did you see how attached he is? She's so stuck in ego. He thinks he's enlightened, but he's clearly not. Same game, different vocabulary. Still the ego trying to feel superior by putting others down. When you see this pattern in yourself, and you will, we all do it, don't judge yourself harshly. Just see it. Oh, there's that pattern again. The seeing itself begins to dissolve it. There was a teacher who went to buy groceries. No robes, no beads, nothing to signal, I'm a spiritual person. Just another person in line at the checkout. The cashier was clearly having a rough day. Scanning items mechanically, barely looking up, sighing heavily. The teacher didn't try to teach her anything, didn't offer wisdom or advice, just listened. The cashier started talking, complaining about her shift, her boss, how tired she was. The teacher listened fully, not planning what to say next, not judging, not trying to fix anything. Just present, offering genuine attention and warmth. At the end of the transaction, the cashier looked up, really looked at him for the first time. "Thank you," she said softly. "That person really saw me." No identity performed. No, I am a teacher, playing out. Just presence offered, human to human. This is the practice. Drop the story of me repeatedly. Not once and you're done. Thousands of times. Noticing self-reference, releasing it. I am so wise. Release. I am such a failure. Release. Both are stories about a separate self that doesn't ultimately exist. Both keep you trapped in comparison, in the endless measuring of yourself against some standard. The Buddha called this mana conceit. Comparing yourself to others. I'm better. I'm worse. I'm equal. All three are delusion. All three assume there's a solid, separate self that can be measured and compared. Freedom is beyond comparison. Not because you're trying not to compare, but because you see clearly there's no one there to compare. Just this moment arising. Just this breath happening. Just this action needed. No me doing it impressively or failing at it. Just it being done through this form for this moment. Humility isn't self-deprecation. It's not putting yourself down, making yourself small, pretending you're less than you are. Humility is the natural result of seeing through self. When you see there's no one there to puff up or put down, what's left is just this. Simple, clear, without the drama of self-importance or self-hatred. Just this moment, this breath, this action that's needed now. No one claiming credit, no one defending against blame. So today, notice when you're performing your identity. Not to judge yourself, that's just more identity, more separation. Just to see, oh, I'm performing spiritual person right now. Oh, I'm performing successful professional. Oh, I'm performing struggling victim. The seeing itself loosens the grip. And underneath all the performance, underneath all the identities you've worn and defended and updated over the years, what's there? Just this awareness. Just this presence. Just this moment, free of the weight of being somebody. So simple. So light. So completely sufficient. The grandmother tending her garden never thought she was transforming the world. She was just watering plants, pulling weeds, sitting under a tree. The nurse didn't know her presence was healing people as much as her medical skills. She was just showing up, doing her job, staying as present as possible. The teacher, buying groceries, wasn't trying to enlighten the cashier. Just offering attention, offering presence, human to human. And yet, ripples. Ripples you'll never fully see, never measure, never control. But real nonetheless. Touching lives in ways you can't imagine, changing the field in directions you'll never know. This is enough. You, showing up as you are, without the burden of identity, without the need to be special or significant. Just present. Just aware. Just here, offering what naturally flows through a heart that's learning to stay open. That's all that's ever been asked. That's all that's ever been needed. What you do with your life, this is your expression. The form it takes, grand or humble, visible or hidden. But how you do it, this is your path. The quality of heart you bring to each moment. The intention behind each word, each action. This is where liberation lives. Your life, exactly as it is, is enough. The work you do, the people you love, the ordinary moments that fill your days, all of it becomes practice when you bring presence to it. Not everyone is called to build empires or teach thousands. Some tend gardens. Some raise children. Some simply show up with kindness in small, unmeasured ways. All equally valid when done with wisdom. The Buddha's final words were simple. Work out your liberation with diligence. Not frantically, not desperately, but with steady, patient effort. You'll forget and return, forget and return. That's not failure. That's the practice. Each moment you remember to be present, you're free. Each moment you act from understanding rather than compulsion, peace is here. This recording will remain a quiet refuge you can return to whenever needed. May you walk gently through your days. May you meet each moment with clear eyes and open heart. May you know the peace that doesn't depend on anything being different than it is. It's here. It's always been here. Just this.